And he's still going. Touchdown! Holy cow! What a play!
Don't stop, keep going. Yeah, no limits, no limits. We're taking it all. No limits.
Number 3, Georgia facing number 14, Tennessee on Saturday on CBS. For more, we're joined by SEC on CBS sideline reporter Jamie Erdahl. Georgia's 2-0 to start the season. They just dominated Auburn this past Saturday. What's impressed you most about this Bulldogs team?
I think what's impressed me most about Georgia is the fact that they were unfazed by what I felt like the rest of the programs were inevitably going to go through in the offseason. This is a team that had a pretty significant bowl win to finish out their 2019 season, and traditionally that would carry pretty good momentum through your offseason to start your next year off strongly. But then COVID happened. And what I found in talking with a lot of these players and programs and coaches is that that really was a speed bump that every team, a very real speed bump that every team had to deal with. And this Georgia team should not have really been any different than anybody else. But what I've seen in the first 2 games is that they've hit the ground running. This defense didn't have a ton of losses when it comes to guys graduating and moving on, maybe just from the left tackle position. But this was an insanely powerful defense last season. So the fact that they haven't skipped a beat, they kind of kept their summer program as close to what they could have, given the times that we were living in. To be honest, I'm not surprised that they're 2-0. I think Auburn is still a team that's settling into their offense under a young quarterback. So the fact that Georgia was able to take advantage of that, especially as I just mentioned from the defensive side of the ball, doesn't surprise me. And I think it's fitting that they're number 3 in the country right now.
Really starting to click on all cylinders. And it was on Saturday, Georgia made the decision to start Stetson Bennett at QB. He was the 5th string quarterback on the roster in the spring. He won the job. And talk about a resume, a former walk-on before playing junior college. Jamie, will he have Georgia on his mind for years to come?
I think Georgia hopes so. I mean, what an insane story for this young man, especially in this day and age when we always hear the dreaded 2 words, either midseason or towards the end, especially at the quarterback position, of transfer portal. Stetson Bennett decided to leave Georgia. I think it was the right decision if I were him. He was behind Jake Fromm and Justin Fields at the time in 2017. He went and he got insane reps, a full season of reps at the JUCO level in 2018. For him to come back and learn under Jake Fromm once again last season and to get that opportunity and absolutely run with it over the last game and a half, but really show what he's made of against Auburn. Georgia's going into an absolute buzzsaw part of their schedule, and they needed one of their quarterbacks to emerge here. And the fact that it's Stetson Bennett, I think, speaks more to the experience he's been able to gain over the last couple of years, even if it wasn't in a Georgia jersey.
Definitely the right decision considering where he's at now. It's no surprise Georgia and Florida are atop the SEC East standings. After facing Tennessee Saturday, the Bulldogs have to travel to Tuscaloosa to face Alabama. You can also see that game on CBS in 2 weeks. How do you expect this race to shake out in the East?
Well, Sherry, honestly, this is my 3rd year on the SEC on CBS. And early November, as we all know, is the Florida-Georgia, Georgia-Florida game. I know I'm supposed to say it a certain way depending on what state I'm in. But it's the game where they face each other in Jacksonville. And when I first got to the SEC, this was the game to define the SEC East. But honestly, in my first 2 seasons, it just didn't feel as defining. It felt like the season had already kind of we've already seen how the season was going to shake out, at least in the past 2 seasons between those 2 schools. I truly think that this year it is going to be a very defining game come November 8th, I believe it is. Florida looks very powerful, and I'm not surprised. Kyle Trask is a cool, calm, and collected character. He's a little on the quiet side, but he works for that offense under Dan Mullen. What a story. If we're talking quarterback stories, what a remarkable story Kyle Trask is for Florida. And the fact that these 2, I do think that Georgia has a little bit, I don't want to say easier of a schedule, but depending on how October shakes out, Georgia could have a little bit easier of a path after they face Florida. That is their true defining moment in the SEC East. Florida, on the other hand, And again, I think I don't know if I'm transposing these two, but I think Florida has to face Tennessee later on in the season in early December. And depending on how Tennessee's season shakes out, that could be a challenging opponent for them.
Well, Georgia has won the last 3 against Florida at the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, so definitely one to mark there on your calendar. But on the other side, Tennessee has won 8 straight. They're ranked 14th in the country. What do you think of the Vols through 2 games?
Oh, I hope this holds for them, honestly. And again, my experience on the SEC is really kind of being in the trenches over the last 2 seasons. And this is how Tennessee, I think, has started under Jeremy Pruitt in my tenure in this role. And it's just kind of petered out for them as the season has gone on. They've had a couple of solid wins, but they just don't seem to be able to string a schedule together that really shows you that this team has arrived. A little bit like what I saw from Texas A&M last week, honestly. I know they may be a little bit stronger of a team than Tennessee at times, but I kind of put those on the same trajectory. I just want to see more from them on a consistent basis. Jeremy Pruitt had an interesting quote recently about his quarterback, Jarrett Garantano. Consistency breeds confidence. And I feel like Tennessee fans or people that follow that program, that's what they need from the team as a whole. They need consistency from Tennessee for them to have confidence in the fact that this Vols team is here to stay. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to be shaking my head about them come mid-November.
All right, well, looking at this battle of unbeaten teams on CBS Saturday, Jamie, what are you watching for in that game?
Like I just said, I'm watching for Tennessee to really be able to take this on the road. Jarrett Garantano has a lot to prove, unfortunately. He's a skilled quarterback. He's a solid quarterback, but this team is still rebuilding for Tennessee, and this is a tough environment to go into. I think it's a bad thing for Tennessee that Georgia just stomped on Auburn, and now they get to play at home once again. Between the Hedges is a remarkable place to play if you're a Georgia player, and pretty unfortunate if you're from anywhere else. In Georgia, I think look for them to not skip a beat. Stetson Bennett, I think you're just going to see him, settle into his cowboy boots a little bit. And finally, he has emerged as the guy for Georgia. And I think knowing that program's personality and getting to know him a little bit more this week, I'm sure he'll just want to continue to prove as to why he's the guy.
Jamie Erdahl will be on the sideline calling Saturday's Tennessee-Georgia matchup alongside Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson. Safe travels to Athens. We'll see you Saturday afternoon, Jamie.
Thank you.
And here's a look at the series history between Tennessee and Georgia. The Bulldogs lead the all-time series 24-23, tag along 2 ties. They've won 3 straight overall in 5 of the last 6 matchups played in Athens. We're now joined by CBS Sports college football writer Barrett Sallee and Sportsline analyst Emery Hunt. Last Saturday was no contest for Georgia, just rolling past Auburn 27-6. Barrett, I want to start with you. What was your biggest takeaway from the Bulldogs' performance?
Man, it was that offensive line, because against Arkansas in the first game of the season, against a pretty average Arkansas defense, that offensive line for Georgia looked slow. It didn't look strong. It didn't look like it had gelled together. And look, those guys are talented, and coaches always say it's a cliche that you improve the most between game 1 and game 2. Georgia improved the most between game 1 and game 2 along that offensive line because, man, they just flat out dominated. Look, Stetson Bennett played well. That dude had about 30 seconds in that pocket every single time. It was insane. So I was really impressed with Georgia, the way they were able to dominate in the trenches. That set up the ability to run. It gave Stetson Bennett plenty of time. It allowed everything in that offense to click the way it was supposed to click. So, man, couldn't be more impressed with that offensive line. And I think moving forward, because those guys are talented, the experience they gained improving from game 1 to game 2 means that from here on out, they're going to be just that consistent.
Yeah, just to build on top of what Barrett said, he hit the point right on the head. I'm going on the other side of the ball. The way they handled the point of attack on defense was impressive. I thought they just legitimately threw around the Auburn Tigers, both their offensive line, the run game. They were after Bo Nix. And if you're able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, it makes life a lot easier for everyone behind you. So you saw the offense have success, but the back seven also had success. The secondary was doing what they needed to do to take away the passing game. It was complete dominance up front by Georgia. And I think if they're able to continue to have that level of point of attack play, they're going to be fun to watch moving forward.
Stetson Bennett started his first career game in that one, throwing for 240 yards and a touchdown. Emory, is this the right move for Kirby Smart to stick with Bennett?
You have to. I think when you look at how he came into that Arkansas game and the confidence that he instilled in that offense to help them close out that win and avoid the upset, and how he followed it up the following week against Auburn, a very good football team, yeah, you have to stay with him. He's earned that right to get out there and continue to be the starting quarterback for Georgia. Plus, he's playing efficient football. As long as he's keeping this offense on pace, I don't see a problem with him being the starter. He's earned that opportunity. He's done a great job, and he has this offense on fire.
Yeah, I agree, although I wouldn't say stick with him forever. I'd say make him prove that he can consistently can play at that level, not make those mistakes, and keep that offense, like Emory said, on schedule, get them into 2nd and 5s, 3rd and shorts. And if that happens, then Georgia's going to be fine. But I saw Stetson Bennett for a long time. I saw him as a sophomore and a junior in some of these high school camps around the state of Georgia. And the guy worked his tail off. I mean, he was at basically every high school regional across the entire country wearing that U.S. mail hat. That's why they call him the mailman. But he had to work to get even a preferred walk-on offer from Georgia. So I think the upside for Stetson, and I think we kind of seen this, is maybe not as high as other quarterbacks. The question for Georgia is, how high do you need his upside to be in order to play at that elite level? I think at this point, you can say as long as you don't make mistakes, young man, you're fine. But if they need a little more boost, if they need a little more juice, if they need a little more consistency deep downfield, then JT Daniels, once he's healthy, has that upside. So I think for now, until JT Daniels proves, until Stetson Bennett proves that he can't make those smart decisions, keep him in there. But if you need JT Daniels, make sure he's ready. Keep him in your back pocket, because Stetson Bennett, I don't think, can be a difference maker long term for Georgia.
Well, equally as impressive through the first 2 weeks of the SEC season is Florida. They're right there at the top of the standings with Georgia. Of these two teams, who do you trust to win the conference, Barrett?
I still think it's Florida, because I think what you've seen offensively from them, that's their identity. I think Georgia's still building it, but when you're Florida, when you're Dan Mullen, and you got a guy in Kyle Trask who's developed so much over the course of his career. Remember, this guy had not started a season as a starting quarterback ever. Not even in high school, because he was behind De'Aaron King. So for him to develop in this way in an offseason that was a little bit strange, to me it shows consistency, because you look at that trust that they have. Kyle Trask has a ton of control at the line of scrimmage. And while Dan Mullen is an offensive wizard, that's not something that he typically does with his quarterbacks. He didn't even do it with Dak Prescott when Dak was at Mississippi State. So I think Florida, to me, the real identity of Florida is that offense. I still need to see it from Georgia. Yeah, Florida's defense has been a little sketchy. They really struggled on 3rd downs last week, but only 4 yards per play. That's really, really solid. That was where they were last week against South Carolina. So I see more hope that they'll be more consistent. And let's face it, Todd Grantham's a good defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Georgia. I think when you have a great defense, it'll always give you an opportunity to win ball games. And we saw Florida's defense, like you talked about, get a little bit sketchy against South Carolina. But what was also sketchy to me was how South Carolina at times had success running the football. Now, flip that over to Georgia. What they do well, run the football. We just spoke about the offensive line and how they were able to handle Auburn. So if it came down to a tight game and your offense is not having a great day, I'm talking about Florida, you side with a team that can run the football, play great defense, and maybe be productive enough in the passing game. So I think right now, until I see Florida's defense step up to where their offense to me is the best in the East by far. But defensively, I worry about them, because they're going to need their offense to not have an off day in order to knock off a team like Georgia. So right now, I'm leaning toward Georgia being the best team in the East.
Georgia did represent the East the last 3 years in the SEC championship game. Florida last there in 2016. So I have to see how this one shakes out. But let's talk about Tennessee. We've seen this before. They started 5-0 in 2016 before going 4-4 over their final 8 games. What's your level of confidence this season can be different for the Volunteers, Emory?
Well, just like I said with Georgia, I think a lot of it, we get enamored with the passing game and the spread offense, but still today in 2020, you can win football games, you can run the ball and play good defense. And I think what's impressive about Tennessee is how well they're running the football. Ty Chandler is doing a great job. Eric Groh is doing a great job. I'm sorry, the other tailback is doing a good job. I forgot his last name, but I know both of those guys are doing a really good job running the football. And because of that, they're not putting as much pressure on Garantano to throw the football a lot. I think that's where he got into a lot of problems last year and throughout his career, is trying to do too much. But now they're asking him to take what the defense gives him, just keep the offense on pace. And defensively, they're turning the ball over. They're being active around the line of scrimmage, so they're getting bodies around the quarterback. And I think because of those two elements, it does give them a chance to be successful this season.
Yeah, I think they'll have a chance against Georgia. I think they're going to have a chance in every game they play. Really, they did that last year after the back-to-back losses to start the season, and a lot of it is on the defense. I think they really have bought into what Jeremy Pruitt has asked them to do. You go back and look at what they did last year. They didn't give up more than 5 yards per play for the last 8 or 9 games of last season, and then the first 2 of this season. The last time they gave up more than that was against Georgia a year ago. And so when you combine that with an offensive line now with Cade Mays, it's going to be a really solid team. Maybe not that high ceiling, but the floor is still pretty high too. They're going to be solid week in and week out. They're going to beat you up. They're going to be physical at the line of scrimmage. And if those running backs can break a play or two, it's going to really help Jarrett Garantano, because we've seen Jarrett Garantano. We know what we're going to get. He's all right. Now, if he doesn't make the mistakes, then that team will have a chance. As long as he doesn't make mistakes, as long as that offensive line protects him, they're going to be in every ball game. And this weekend against Georgia is no exception.
Georgia's seeking their 4th straight win over Tennessee. They're favored by 13 in this one. The total set at 43.5. What's your play here, Barrett?
I'm going under, and I'm taking Tennessee against the spread, but Georgia outright. I think this is going to be a really ugly game because, like we've talked about, the trenches on both sides of the ball for both of these teams, it's just awesome. It's going to be so much fun to watch these dudes just in a fist fight at the line of scrimmage. In the end, I think Georgia gets the job done. But will Tennessee be hanging around in the 4th quarter? Yeah, I absolutely think so. Because of that, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think you're going to look at a 17-14 style game, a 17-10 style game. So, yeah, I will take Tennessee to cover. I'll take the under. It's going to be a fist fight.
Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia to cover in this ball game. I do think at some point in the game, they're going to put a lot of pressure on Garantano to make plays in the passing game. I believe Georgia would do a solid job versus the run and try to make this a Stetson Bennett versus Jarrett Garantano game. And that's a game I believe right now Georgia can win. So I do agree with you. The under is going to hit. But when you look at the score, I'm thinking maybe 20-7, maybe 20-3 type game, 20-6. So I do see Georgia covering the 13-point spread. But it's going to be a physical game on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
A lot to look forward to before 3:30 on CBS on Saturday. Barrett Salee, Emery Hunt, breaking down all things Tennessee and Georgia. Thank you, guys. And if you want more college football action, download and subscribe to the Cover 3 Football Podcast. Our insiders give you all the insight you need for this college football season. One of their latest episodes breaking down Week 5. Download and subscribe today.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.